Hi. Hey, you can't run the timer if the music's still on. That's okay, I'm not gonna go 20 minutes. So you just covered like the first 4 paragraphs of my talk and the title's wrong. I'm not gonna talk about visuals much at all, maybe peripherally. We on stage? All right, hi. I'm Brian, and I used to be an unhappy programmer. I was working in Chicago, doing the things that software developers in Chicago do. I was making software for bankers and for marketing teams at banks and productivity tools for lawyers. And I loved the craft of making software. But the work, at the end of the day, was just soul-sucking shit. My job was making rich people richer every day. And so I was considering getting a degree in law. Like, I wanted to get out. So I was thinking, like, maybe law, or maybe I had some friends who were studying public policy. Because I wanted to use my skills to make the world a better place. Then I happened upon this blog post on Boing Boing one day that Northwestern was giving scholarships to software developers to study journalism. It was interesting to me because I was the cartoonist for my high school newspaper, but had never considered this as a profession. And so I Googled journalism, and that's a true story. I read about its mission. I read the Journalist Creed, if there are any Mizzou geeks in the house. That Mizzou Creed, it struck a nerve with me. I realized that the law and policy were sort of top-down solutions, and the idea that journalism was something from the bottom up, that was about informing people so they can better self-govern, really got me going. So I dropped everything, went back to school, and that's enough about my history. It's been a fun ride. I was at ProPublica, I was at Chicago Tribune, and now I run the visuals team at NPR. And it is a weird and awesome kind of nerd who decides to work on a visual journalism team at National Public Radio. So we're a crew of 15 misfits. We're hackers and designers and photographers and producers. We make graphics, pictures. We do data analysis for stories. We do some of our own reporting, and we make all kinds of fancy shit for the internet. And the history of visual journalism at NPR is relatively short, as you can imagine. So there has never been a lot of structure around our job, around our role. Like, what are we supposed to do? And a couple of years ago, we got to asking ourselves, what is the point of photography at a radio organization? What should we be doing? And we had the freedom of not having a newspaper to fill with our pictures and graphics and whatnot. So we could say to ourselves, what should web native graphics be? What is web native photojournalism? And eventually we asked ourselves the big question, what the fuck's the point, right? What are we trying to do, right? If we're to have an impact on the world, what's the impact that we want to have? And in journalism and in the greater do-gooder world, especially foundations and grants and whatnot, there's a lot of talk about impact and impact measurement, right? And sometimes it's pretty tangible, right? When I was at ProPublica, impact was things happening in the US Congress. And when I was at Chicago Tribune, impact was throwing a governor into jail, which is a pretty good business to be in Illinois, But NPR impact's a little weird. Like, we don't do a lot of accountability journalism at NPR. And I don't mean that as a bust on my peers, but it's weird. That's not really our bread and butter. And it actually bummed me out. Like, I love local news. I love doing this shit, right? Where's Kurt? I love your work. But what I realized eventually was the power of radio was hearing someone's voice could make you give a shit in a way that just reading it couldn't, right? Hearing someone tell their story could make you care. And so if that's the power of radio, what's the power of a picture or a graphic, right? We sort of came to realize it's not all that different. That a picture can instantly make you give a shit, right? A photo can be a little empathy machine, right? So that idea kind of became our self-chosen mission at NPR Visuals, is that our impact is empathy, and our mission is to make people give a shit, right? To make people care. And that's a fun mission to have, right? I'm glad we have a mission. But you can't just have a mission, you've got to do the work, right? And once you've done the work, you ought to know if the work you did worked, right? How do you know if you're actually succeeding at your mission? And specifically, the question of how the hell do you measure success, right? Well, the measures we have for success in journalism are fucking terrible. At best, we have page views, which, page views at their best tell you if you wrote a good headline, and at worst tell you how good you are at pandering. And then there are, of course, awards. If you can't win a Pulitzer, I don't want one. But this shit is just evidence of if we've impressed our peers, right? And I love you all. I love my peers, right? But you're not my audience, all right? They're the people who matter to me. And so a year ago, we said to ourselves, all right, so if all this is bullshit, if I don't give a fuck about an Emmy, and I don't give a shit about page views, then what should I be measuring? Well, if our impact is empathy, then shouldn't we try to measure empathy, right? So how do we measure if we made people care? Unfortunately, we cannot put our audience into an MRI machine and scan their brain while they're reading our story. So we've been on the hunt for other measurements, right? Measurements that are at best, proxies for giving a shit, or at least measurements that are better than a page view, right? And so there are some things that we were already getting from our tools, like Google Analytics will tell you, so let's say, how long someone spent reading a story, which is okay. But we also started building new measurements for ourselves. For example, up here, we started putting a button on some of our stories that said, did you love this story? Did this story make you care? Click yes or no. People totally click that. It's fascinating. Another metric we made up was taking the number of shares on Facebook and dividing it by the number of page views. So move page views into the denominator, right? Which is sort of a notion of what percentage of people who read this story were moved to tell their friends about it, which I think is pretty okay. But my favorite that we've come up with recently, we've been playing with recently, is something we're calling an engaged completion rate. And it's a little tricky, so I'll explain it. So a lot of our work has this little begin button at the top of it. And some people, when they arrive at our story, will click that. And some people, when they arrive at our story, will close the window and go back to reading Facebook. And y'all know, y'all do this, y'all are internet users. We do this all the time. Tons of page views are in and out, right? And so we should throw all those out. They just shouldn't count, right? So what we do is we count the number of people who clicked begin, who stepped in the front door, and then we look at the number of those people and how many of those people who started actually finished the piece. So it's sort of a question of, if we hooked you, could we hang on to you for the remainder of the story? So I got all these numbers. And the question really is, now what? So I know some things about what people are doing with our shit. If they don't change, these numbers don't change your actions, then again, you're not, who cares, right? And so the way we've been looking at it, there are sort of two big things you can do with these numbers. You can optimize for success, right? And this is something we've been doing on our team. We've actually regrouped and reshaped the team slightly, given people slightly different jobs so that we are better suited to create stories that perform by the measurements that we are liking, right? And the second thing I think is maybe less obvious but more important is to figure out how to better celebrate success. And that sounds kind of hokey, but hang with me for a second. So, for example, this here is a story about the civil war in Yemen, right? This is some eat your broccoli shit. It's about foreign people. Where the hell is Yemen even? And the civil war, it's not like, it's a messy one. Maybe like they all are. And this story did about 60,000 page views, which at NPR, it's not a dog. It's okay. But I mean, a lot of our work can hit tens of thousands, can hundreds of thousands, millions, right? And everybody on the team, like, we all want our stories to reach people, right? That's cool. That's natural. But you do a story like this, you're not going to have a huge reach, right? This is like the saddest fucking story in the world, right? Like, it's not going to go that far. It's hard, right? And it's long. So you might be let down. But of the 60,000 people who saw this page, 50,000 clicked begin, right? And 70% of those people who clicked begin hung around and read the whole damn thing. And this is like a long piece, right? It's 70% of people spent like 10 minutes with us, like reading this. There may be more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I forget. Anyway, if you only cared about page views, you'd be let down. If that's the only thing you got a pat on the back for in the newsroom, you'd be like, oh, I fucked up, right? But a 70% completion rate is fucking insane, right? Like you've actually made an impact on a lot of people's lives, maybe. At least you got them to read something. All right, I'm gonna try a different metaphor on you for a second. So this is a door, right? Not a few steps from my desk at NPR headquarters in Washington, D.C., in our brand new building. Design geeks in the audience will recognize it as what do we call it? Any design nerds? This is a Norman door, named after a gentleman named Donald Norman, the fellow who more or less invented the study of usability. Vox.com literally just published a short video about Norman doors today. I did not have enough time to put on my slides. Whoa. And so Don Norman's book, it's called, one of his books is The Design of Everyday Things, which many of you may have read. And it's wonderful, and I love it because it is full of forgiveness, right? It's about, things not being usable. Like this remote control that's kind of funny to use, it's not my fault, right? Your CMS that is impossible to figure out, that's not your fault. Like, it's not that you're not a CMS person, right? It's that it's badly designed, right? And this stupid fucking door that offers no clue if I am supposed to push or pull on the door is not my fault, right? But we have them, right? We have these things. We just built this building. These doors are brand new. And our building makes smart people feel stupid every goddamn day, right? Oh shit, I always forget how to open that door, It's just like, you're a fucking war correspondent, Like, it's disrespectful. And you know what else makes smart people feel stupid every day is our daily analytics email, right? This is a list of stories that got a lot of page views yesterday. And sometimes it'll be breaking news, and sometimes it's a good piece of journalism. I forget even what's up here. Some okay stuff. But it's also just as likely to be a list of stories about celebrities or about self-diagnosing back pain or, whatever. It's rarely a full list of great, impactful, important journalism that's worth celebrating. And the point I bring this up is that these doors and these analytics things that we have are structures in our work environment, right? They are demoralizing, right? We chose to create these terribly designed things, and they influence people's behavior every day. And when they're designed badly, they are the enemy of good work. So we're trying to fight this enemy. On our little team, we've got a little tiny grant to build this little tiny thing called the CareBot. And what we're hoping is it will be a positive structure in our work environment, that it will help us celebrate good work that reinforces our mission. The idea here is that when we publish a story, this little robot picks it up and delivers little friendly messages into our team Slack channel that tells us how people are actually using our stuff and tells us in a way that's useful. If any of y'all were at Matt's talk this morning, when that slide went up on screen that said relationship design is the new user experience, I about fell out of my chair, because that is exactly what we've been doing for the last couple months, designing this thing. And hopefully CareBot will tell us on a daily basis if people cared about our work. And that is something that's worth celebrating. Went too fast. So our project is open source, and you're all free to follow along. You can use the thing. That's one free tool at a journalism conference. That'll get you tweets, right? Free tools. But downer, we're building this something that works for our mission, right? And your mission, some of your missions are like ours. A lot of them aren't. So our stuff isn't going to solve all y'all's problems. So I recommend that you attempt to figure this out for yourselves. And to do that, it is important to know your mission. It's important to measure things that matter to you, not merely the things that are easy to measure that Google gives you for free. And find out some interesting new ways to celebrate success in your organizations and create structures that reinforce them.